when my daughter-in-law Rachel smiled sweetly at me across the kitchen table and announced, "We've decided to help you with some creative downsizing, Eleanor. You really don't need all this space at your age, and we found you a lovely little assisted living community just 20 minutes away." While casually browsing real estate apps to check my property's current market value of $1.2 million, she was talking to the woman who had spent 38 years as the Chief Regional Planning Director for the Oregon Department of Land Development, personally designed the zoning regulations that governed every square inch of Cascade County, including the exact plot of land where she sat, and maintained active authority over land use permits, property development rights, and housing regulations that could transform her comfortable assumptions about property ownership into the most expensive lesson about elderly respect that any real estate family had ever received. But before we dive into this incredible story of family manipulation meeting property law expertise and the zoning empire my ungrateful family never knew existed, make sure to hit that like button if you've ever had family members try to make major decisions about your life without asking your permission first. Drop a comment telling me about the most outrageous thing a family member has ever assumed they could decide for you. And subscribe so you never miss stories like this one about what happens when entitled relatives assume elderly family members are helpless obstacles to their plans, only to discover just how catastrophically wrong they can be when family disrespect meets the kind of regulatory authority that could make their dream home legally uninhabitable. My name is Eleanor Rose Hartwell. I'm 76 years old, and this story begins on September 18, 2023, when I was enjoying my usual Sunday morning coffee on the wraparound porch of my custom-built lakefront home in Cascade Lake, Oregon, a peaceful moment that would be shattered by my son Michael's family arriving unannounced with a folder full of assisted living brochures and a completely developed plan for helping me transition to a more age-appropriate living situation that they had researched, coordinated, and decided upon without ever asking what I actually wanted for my own life and property. To understand how my son Michael James Hartwell, a 45-year-old commercial real estate broker earning $110,000 annually while raising 3 teenagers in their cramped 1,200 square foot Portland suburb rental that cost them $2,800 monthly in housing expenses they struggle to manage, and his wife Rachel Marie Sullivan Hartwell, a 42-year-old interior designer with her own home staging business that generates inconsistent income ranging from $45,000 to $75,000 per year, depending on market conditions, ended up watching their comfortable assumptions about elderly family management and property inheritance dissolve through legitimate zoning enforcement protocols within 96 hours of telling me I didn't need my own home. You need to know who I was before my carefully maintained image as a simple retired grandmother living alone on the lake concealed the regulatory expertise and land development authority that had elevated me from junior planning assistant in 1985 to chief regional planning director responsible for overseeing development approval for over 12,000 properties throughout Central Oregon. For 38 remarkable years, I was Eleanor Hartwell, dedicated public service professional at the Oregon Department of Land Development, starting as an entry-level permit coordinator when environmental impact assessments were still done with paper forms and carbon copies, and advancing through every level of regulatory responsibility until my retirement in 2019 as Chief Regional Planning Director with ultimate authority over major development projects, family property approvals, and land use systems that most people never understand or appreciate. My career had encompassed every aspect of property regulation, from basic permit processing to complex multi-generational property planning that determined whether families maintained their homes across decades, whether young couples received appropriate development support, and whether the next generation of Oregon residents achieved the property stability and homeownership excellence that distinguished lasting prosperity from temporary housing arrangements and zoning compliance abandonment. The transformation that I had witnessed and managed during my career was extraordinary. From manual property documentation systems stored in traditional filing cabinets to sophisticated computer networks that could instantly verify zoning compliance, development eligibility, environmental clearance status, and permit availability across regional databases that connected individual family property development to statewide land use planning systems. I had been personally responsible for training over 187 planning professionals in development protocols, environmental compliance procedures, and land use management techniques that required both advanced regulatory expertise and deep understanding of property law, federal environmental regulations, and constitutional property rights protections. My position as Chief Regional Planning Director meant that I possessed what was essentially master-level access to the Pacific Northwest Property Development Network, the ability to classify development eligibility, coordinate multi-agency permit distribution, implement emergency property protection protocols, and evaluate landowner conduct that could instantly transform someone's property status from approved development to comprehensive regulatory review, requiring extensive environmental evaluation and federal compliance verification to complete through proper planning channels and documentation processes. The scope of my regulatory responsibilities had grown to encompass managing development oversight for 847 properties across 19 counties, coordinating with federal environmental agencies who required accurate documentation for land use compliance, implementing approval protocols that balanced family needs with environmental protection requirements, designing permit systems that synchronize development approval between state agencies, federal departments, and local municipalities, and troubleshooting zoning complications that could affect everything from individual family home building to multi-generational property development that influenced housing markets and community planning excellence throughout the Pacific Northwest development community. During my 4 decades of distinguished public service, I had personally overseen development approval for over $2.8 billion in family property projects, supervised coordination between 267 different banks, environmental agencies, and municipal offices across 5 states, collaborated with federal land management officials who required accurate regional data for policy analysis, and managed property approval protocols during environmental crises that required immediate coordination between state agencies, federal departments, and private development firms to ensure community stability while maintaining environmental integrity and privacy protections that balanced property access with ecological preservation and federal compliance requirements. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my regulatory career was my role in developing and implementing the automated zoning compliance protocols that determined how development approval flowed between private property applications, federal environmental systems, permit verification networks, and family building coordination. I had personally written zoning specifications that guided property development for hundreds of Oregon's most successful communities, established coordination procedures between planning departments and federal environmental authorities, and created evaluation protocols that ensured consistent, appropriate development approval across residential programs that served both individual family needs and community development excellence requirements. The regulatory infrastructure that I had helped design and implement served as the model for national property development management, with planning authorities in other regions consulting our protocols for guidance on development approval, family coordination, and compliance implementation that balanced landowner expectations with environmental protection optimization. My expertise had been featured in planning industry publications and consulted by development firms throughout the Pacific Northwest who wanted to implement similar property administration systems and automated protocols that served both individual family needs and multi-generational community development monitoring requirements. The modest lakefront home where I had lived for 18 years, which Michael and Rachel considered evidence of my simple retirement lifestyle and outdated approach to modern living, actually served as the primary coordination center for the Oregon Regional Property Development Network, equipped with secure communication systems, encrypted internet connections, and regulatory infrastructure that maintained 24/7 connectivity with planning departments throughout 12 states and enabled immediate response to development emergencies that could affect millions of dollars in family property projects and community planning activities. My living room, which appeared to casual visitors as a comfortable retirement space with family photographs and traditional furniture, contained sophisticated database systems and regulatory management hardware that provided direct access to the primary servers at the Oregon Department of Land Development, backup communication protocols for emergency property coordination, and secure connections to federal environmental databases that required the highest levels of security clearance and professional authentication to access and maintain throughout the development community. The technology setup that I had installed throughout my home represented over $340,000 in specialized equipment and software licensing that enabled me to coordinate property approval activities, respond to development emergencies, and maintain the regulatory infrastructure that supported dozens of Pacific Northwest families' most important homeownership goals throughout Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. The multiple high-resolution monitors that lined my home office walls displayed real-time status information from development databases across 12 states, automated alert systems that notified me of permit errors or compliance issues requiring immediate attention, and coordination interfaces that allowed me to communicate with property professionals, federal environmental officials, and planning administrators throughout the Pacific Northwest region. The daily routine that Michael and Rachel occasionally observed during their infrequent visits, which they interpreted as simple retirement activities and limited social engagement, actually included coordinating property approval operations that affected over 2.3 million development records, supervising emergency response protocols for permit failures that could disrupt family building throughout multiple counties, and providing regulatory consultation for federal environmental officials who relied on accurate regional data for national policy analysis and development allocation planning. The morning schedule that began each day at 5:45 a.m. included reviewing overnight system alerts from development databases across 12 states, analyzing automated error reports that identified potential compliance issues or permit integrity problems requiring immediate attention, coordinating with federal environmental databases that synchronized with our regional systems during off-peak hours, and implementing system updates that maintained compliance protocols and improved database performance for millions of family records and property transactions. The afternoon coordination activities included supervising permit integration between municipal planning offices and federal agencies, troubleshooting system errors that affected property allocation visibility and family application processing, coordinating with federal environmental officials who needed accurate regional data for policy analysis and funding development, and managing crisis response protocols during natural disasters that required immediate coordination between multiple state agencies and private development organizations. But beyond the regulatory coordination responsibilities that occupied most of my daily schedule, what made my land development expertise particularly valuable was my comprehensive understanding of how property systems affected individual families and communities throughout the United States and Canada. Every family who received timely development approvals, every homeowner who built successfully, every community grant that reached appropriate recipients, and every emergency response that coordinated effectively, represented the successful implementation of systems and protocols that I had spent decades developing, refining, and maintaining. The Oregon Department of Land Development organization where I had spent my entire career wasn't just a regional planning contractor, it was the exclusive provider of coordination services for the Federal Environmental Protection Agency's Pacific Northwest Regional Integration Network, coordinating family property development for over 1,200 municipal jurisdictions, 34 major metropolitan planning areas, and managing permit integration with 156 different environmental agencies and development organizations across 12 states. Our systems processed over $4.2 billion in annual property transactions, coordinated family development for over 445 different municipalities and planning organizations, and maintained the infrastructure that enabled platforms like Federal Environmental Administration, state planning departments, and development networks to provide effective property management and family building support for thousands of Pacific Northwest families. The scope of our development management operations required coordination with the Department of Housing and Urban Development for property compliance and audit support, the Environmental Protection Agency for Family Development Program integration, the Department of the Interior for federal land use compliance verification, the Department of Agriculture for rural development coordination, and the Department of Homeland Security for family development verification and security monitoring that supported both individual privacy protection and national security requirements. My security clearance level required annual background investigations, financial audits, psychological evaluations, and professional competency assessments that ensured only the most qualified and trustworthy planning professionals maintained access to systems that could affect national property programs, regional family stability, and federal development policy creation. The clearance process included polygraph examinations, extensive interviews with professional colleagues and federal officials, and continuous monitoring that verified my continued reliability and commitment to maintaining the highest standards of professional integrity and system security. The regulatory innovations that I had developed during my career included automated integration protocols that synchronized property data between municipal planning databases and federal environmental systems, compliance algorithms that protected family privacy while maintaining development accessibility, error detection systems that identified permit irregularities before they affected family construction, and crisis response protocols that maintained system stability during equipment failures or cybersecurity incidents that could affect millions of family records and billions of dollars in property activity. These innovations had been adopted by planning departments throughout North America, implemented by federal environmental agencies for national database modernization, and licensed to international development organizations that wanted to implement similar integration systems and compliance protocols for family development management in European Union countries, Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific Rim nations, seeking to modernize their property systems and improve permit coordination between government agencies and private development organizations. The consulting contracts that I had negotiated with federal environmental agencies included ongoing regulatory support for database modernization projects, emergency response coordination during system failures that affected multiple states, compliance assessment and enhancement for federal property databases, and strategic planning for next-generation development technology that would improve system integration and reduce permit management costs while maintaining accuracy and security standards that protected both individual family privacy and federal environmental monitoring capabilities. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my property development authority was my role in determining which families received priority processing and optimal permit visibility throughout the Pacific Northwest Regional Family Development Network. The integration protocols that I had designed included automated quality assessment algorithms that evaluated property applications for appropriateness and completeness, determined development positioning based on family need and environmental status, and implemented enhanced allocation protocols for families who met the highest standards for community impact and environmental potential. What my family never understood during all those years of treating me like a simple retired grandmother who needed help with modern technology and property management was that their comfortable assumption about my limited capabilities revealed their complete ignorance of the regulatory empire I had built throughout the Pacific Northwest development community, an empire that operated so seamlessly and efficiently that its very invisibility had become its greatest strength and my family's most dangerous vulnerability. The beautiful custom lakefront home where I had chosen to spend my retirement, which Michael and Rachel viewed as an oversized burden that required their management intervention, was actually a masterpiece of sustainable design that I had personally permitted and overseen during its construction in The 3,400-square-foot residence featured advanced environmental systems, energy-efficient construction techniques, and landscape integration that had earned recognition from environmental planning organizations and served as a model for sustainable lakefront development throughout Central Oregon. The property itself represented the culmination of everything I had learned about harmonious development during my planning career, a demonstration of how thoughtful design could enhance natural beauty while providing comfortable modern living that respected environmental constraints and enhanced community character. The wraparound porch where I enjoyed my morning coffee overlooked Cascade Lake through carefully preserved old-growth Douglas firs that provided privacy while maintaining the natural forest ecosystem that made this location so special. The advanced geothermal heating system that I had specified for the home provided efficient climate control while minimizing environmental impact. The rainwater collection system that supplied irrigation for my organic gardens demonstrated sustainable water management, and the solar panel array that generated more electricity than the house consumed reflected my commitment to environmental responsibility and energy independence that exceeded typical residential standards. But what made this property particularly significant wasn't just its environmental innovations, it was its strategic location within the regulatory framework that I had helped create for Cascade County development. The zoning classifications that governed this exact parcel, the environmental protections that I had written into the county planning code, and the development restrictions that ensured this area would remain pristine lakefront residential, reflected decades of careful planning and regulatory expertise that most property owners never understood or appreciated. The setback requirements that protected the natural shoreline, the tree preservation ordinances that maintained forest character, the septic system regulations that protected water quality, and the architectural guidelines that ensured compatible development all represented regulatory frameworks that I had personally developed and implemented during my years as Chief Regional Planning Director. Every aspect of what made this location special and valuable was protected by zoning codes and environmental regulations that reflected my professional expertise and commitment to sustainable community development. Michael's comfortable assumptions about inheriting this property, which he had mentioned during several recent phone conversations with Rachel, reflected his complete misunderstanding of both property law and his mother's actual intentions for her carefully planned retirement lifestyle. His casual discussions about eventually developing the property for maximum financial return, possibly subdividing the large lot, or replacing the house with something more valuable, revealed his fundamental ignorance of the environmental protections and zoning restrictions that made such development impossible without extensive regulatory review and environmental compliance verification. Rachel's interior design business had benefited from my professional connections and regulatory expertise more than she ever realized, with several of her most successful staging projects involving properties that had navigated complex permit processes through planning departments where my former colleagues expedited applications and provided guidance that enabled smooth approvals and timely construction completion. The professional network that she considered evidence of her own marketing success actually reflected the kind of regulatory coordination and planning department relationships that required decades of professional service and community contribution to develop and maintain. The comfortable lifestyle that Michael's family maintained in their Portland suburb rental, while constantly complaining about housing costs and dreaming of property ownership, had been indirectly supported by my professional expertise and willingness to provide occasional financial assistance during family emergencies. The summer vacations that brought them to my lakefront home, the holiday gatherings that they enjoyed in my spacious living areas, and the recreational activities that my property enabled for their 3 teenagers all represented benefits that they had come to expect and assume, rather than appreciate as generous hospitality from an elderly relative. The irony of being told that I needed to downsize by family members who had never owned property, had never navigated the complex regulatory requirements of environmental development, and had never demonstrated any understanding of the planning expertise and environmental knowledge required for successful property management, was not lost on me. The systematic assumption that elderly relatives should accommodate young families' inheritance expectations through premature lifestyle changes represented exactly the kind of character evidence that would justify implementing comprehensive regulatory review protocols and development eligibility reconsideration. Sometimes the most dangerous assumption you can make about elderly relatives is that their comfortable retirement lifestyle represents an opportunity for family intervention rather than recognition of a lifetime of professional achievement and regulatory expertise that created every environmental protection and development opportunity that distinguishes sustainable communities from unplanned development disasters. The creative downsizing that Rachel proposed would soon become the most expensive lesson about property law and elderly respect that any real estate family had ever received. The normal family dynamic that had developed over the past 18 years since I moved to my lakefront retirement home in Cascade Lake had created a comfortable routine of seasonal visits, holiday gatherings, and occasional weekend trips that allowed Michael's family to enjoy the benefits of my beautiful property while maintaining their independent lifestyle in Portland. From their perspective, these regular visits represented generous grandmother hospitality and family bonding time that provided their teenagers with outdoor recreation opportunities, peaceful study environments, and the kind of lakefront vacation experiences that their rental housing budget could never accommodate. The Sunday morning routine that had been established during these family visits typically included leisurely breakfast preparation in my spacious kitchen, coffee on the wraparound porch while the teenagers explored the property grounds, and afternoon activities that took advantage of the lake access, hiking trails, and recreational amenities that made my home such an attractive destination for family gatherings. Michael would often use these visits to catch up on property maintenance projects that he assumed I needed help managing, while Rachel coordinated meal planning and household organization that she believed demonstrated her valuable contribution to family eldercare and household management responsibilities. During these visits, which had become more frequent over the past 2 years, I had noticed a subtle shift in how Michael and Rachel approached conversations about my living situation and retirement lifestyle. Their comments about the challenges of maintaining such a large property at my age, their observations about my isolation, living alone on the lake, and their gentle suggestions about exploring options for more appropriate housing arrangements had evolved from occasional expressions of concern into systematic discussions about what they perceived as practical eldercare planning and family responsibility. The photo albums that Rachel often browsed during these visits, pointing out pictures from my earlier retirement years and commenting on how I had aged since moving to the lake, reflected her systematic assessment of my capability and her professional evaluation of whether I still possessed the judgment and physical ability to manage independent living in such a large home. Her background in interior design had given her confidence in evaluating living spaces and housing appropriateness, and she had begun applying these professional skills to assess what she considered my changing housing needs and lifestyle requirements. Michael's approach to these conversations reflected his commercial real estate expertise and his systematic thinking about property value optimization and market positioning. His casual questions about my property taxes, maintenance costs, and utility expenses revealed his growing interest in the financial aspects of my homeownership and his professional assessment of whether my current housing situation represented efficient resource allocation for someone in my age demographic. His suggestions about exploring the market and understanding current property values demonstrated his belief that I should consider my housing decisions from a financial optimization perspective rather than emotional attachment to a particular location. The comfortable assumptions that had developed about my daily routine and lifestyle management reflected their systematic observation of what they perceived as the limitations and challenges of elderly independent living. Rachel's comments about my isolation from medical services, shopping convenience, and social activities revealed her belief that lakefront living represented impractical elderly housing that prioritized scenic beauty over essential eldercare services and community accessibility. Her research into local assisted living facilities and senior housing communities demonstrated her systematic approach to identifying what she considered more appropriate housing alternatives for my demographic and lifestyle needs. The guest bedroom that Michael's family had claimed as their regular accommodation during visits had gradually accumulated personal belongings, clothing, and recreational equipment that reflected their growing sense of ownership and territorial familiarity with my property. The teenagers had established favorite locations throughout the house and grounds, the parents had developed preferred seating arrangements and activity zones, and the family had begun treating my home as their secondary residence and vacation property rather than my primary residence where they were welcomed guests. Michael's increasing involvement in property maintenance decisions and household management conversations revealed his systematic assumption of what he considered appropriate family oversight and elder care responsibility. His coordination of landscaping services, heating system maintenance, and security system updates demonstrated his belief that my property management required family supervision and his professional expertise in real estate management and property value preservation. His discussions with service providers often bypassed my direct involvement, treating me as the elderly property owner who needed family assistance, rather than the competent homeowner who had been successfully managing this property for 18 years. Rachel's approach to household organization during family visits reflected her interior design training and her systematic assessment of how my living space could be optimized for what she considered appropriate elderly housing arrangements. Her suggestions about furniture reorganization, room utilization efficiency, and storage optimization revealed her professional evaluation of my home's suitability for aging in place versus transitioning to more manageable housing alternatives. Her photo documentation of room layouts and space utilization demonstrated her systematic planning for what she considered inevitable housing transitions and elder care facility requirements. The family financial discussions that had begun occurring during these visits reflected Michael and Rachel's systematic assessment of my retirement planning and their growing concern about what they perceived as inefficient resource allocation and estate planning optimization. Their questions about my investment portfolio performance, healthcare cost planning, and long-term financial security revealed their belief that my housing expenses represented disproportionate budget allocation that could compromise my financial stability and their potential inheritance preservation. Their suggestions about downsizing for financial optimization demonstrated their systematic thinking about elderly financial management and family wealth preservation strategies. The comfortable routine that had developed around meal planning and household management during family visits had evolved into a system where Rachel assumed increasing responsibility for grocery shopping, meal preparation, kitchen organization, that she justified as helpful elder care assistance and family support during their stay. Her systematic reorganization of kitchen storage, meal planning coordination, and household supply management reflected her belief that my independent living required family oversight and her professional expertise in household organization and space management efficiency. Michael's teenagers had developed their own relationships with my property that reflected their parents' systematic approach to family territory management and inheritance expectations. Emma, now 17, had claimed the lakefront bedroom as her personal space and had begun discussing college planning that assumed continued access to my property for study retreats and recreational activity. James, 15, had established extensive hiking trail familiarity and had begun bringing friends for overnight visits that treated my home as family property, available for teenage entertainment and outdoor recreation. Sarah, 13, had developed elaborate plans for property improvements and additions that reflected her assumption that the family would eventually inherit and modify the property according to their preferences and lifestyle requirements. The systematic nature of these territorial assumptions became particularly evident during holiday gatherings and extended summer visits, when Michael's family operated with complete comfort and familiarity throughout my home, making decisions about meal timing, activity planning, and space utilization, without consulting my preferences or acknowledging my role as property owner and host. Their confident management of household activities, coordination of recreational plan, and assumption of decision-making authority revealed their fundamental perception of my role as elderly family member who provided property access rather than competent adult who maintained independent lifestyle and housing preferences. Rachel's professional network connections had begun extending into my local community through her systematic cultivation of relationships with service providers, local businesses, and community organizations that she justified as helpful family coordination and elder care support. Her interactions with my landscaping service, housekeeping assistants, and property maintenance providers often included discussions about my capabilities, independence level, and potential housing transition needs that positioned her as family spokesperson and elder care coordinator, rather than visiting daughter-in-law who occasionally assisted with property management during family vacations. The community relationships that I had carefully developed over years of residence in Cascade Lake had begun experiencing subtle interference from Rachel's systematic approach to family elder care management and her professional assessment of my community integration and social support needs. Her conversations with neighbors often included questions about my daily routine, social activities, and capability observations that revealed her systematic information gathering about my independence level and community safety within my current housing situation. Michael's commercial real estate expertise had led to increasingly frequent discussions about property market conditions, development trends, and investment opportunities in the Cascade Lake area that revealed his systematic monitoring of my property's financial performance and market position. His casual mentions of comparable property sales, development potential assessments, and market appreciation trends demonstrated his professional evaluation of my property as investment asset rather than personal residence that provided lifestyle satisfaction and retirement enjoyment. The family vacation planning that had evolved around regular visits to my lakefront home had begun assuming permanent availability and access that treated my property as family recreational resource rather than my personal residence that occasionally accommodated family gatherings. Their coordination of friend visits, extended stays, and recreational equipment storage revealed their systematic assumption of territorial rights and usage authority that exceeded typical guest privileges and reflected their fundamental misunderstanding of property ownership and elderly autonomy in housing decisions. Rachel's systematic documentation of my daily routine, social activities, and household management through casual photography and social media posting had begun creating a public record of what she presented as elderly lifestyle monitoring and family elder care responsibility. Her Facebook posts about checking on Eleanor and helping with property maintenance positioned her as responsible family member providing elder care assistance rather than family guest enjoying vacation property amenities and recreational. The elder care research that Rachel had begun conducting included extensive investigation of local assisted living facilities, senior housing communities, and continuing care retirement communities that she justified as responsible family planning and preparation for inevitable housing transition. Her collection of brochures, facility tour scheduling, and cost analysis spreadsheets demonstrated her systematic approach to what she considered appropriate elder care planning and her professional assessment of suitable housing alternatives for my demographic and lifestyle needs. Michael's financial planning discussions had evolved to include suggestions about estate planning optimization, asset allocation efficiency, and inheritance preservation strategies that revealed his systematic thinking about family wealth management and his professional assessment of my financial decision-making and retirement planning adequacy. His recommendations about investment portfolio diversification, healthcare cost preparation, and long-term care insurance demonstrated his belief that my financial management required family oversight, and his commercial real estate expertise in property investment and wealth preservation strategy. The family technology support that Michael provided during visits had expanded into systematic management of my communication systems, internet connectivity, and electronic device coordination that he justified as necessary elder care assistance and family safety monitor. His installation of family tracking applications, emergency communication systems, and remote access protocols reflected his belief that my independent living required family oversight, and his professional assessment of elderly technology needs and safety requirements. Rachel's interior design expertise had led to increasingly frequent suggestions about home modification projects, accessibility improvements, and space optimization initiatives that she presented as helpful family assistance and property value enhancement. Her recommendations about bathroom safety installations, lighting improvement projects, and furniture arrangement modifications revealed her systematic assessment of aging-in-place requirements and her professional evaluation of home modification needs for elderly residents. The family emergency preparedness planning that had been established included detailed protocols for medical emergency response, natural disaster coordination, and family communication during crisis situations that positioned Michael and Rachel as primary emergency contacts and decision-making authorities, rather than support resources available to assist my independent emergency management and community safety coordination. Their systematic coordination of emergency contact information, medical record access, and healthcare provider relationships revealed their fundamental assumption of elder care responsibility and family oversight authority. Michael's investment in property security systems, monitoring equipment, and safety technology reflected his systematic approach to what he considered necessary family oversight and his professional assessment of elderly housing security requirements. His coordination of security service providers, monitoring system management, and emergency response protocols demonstrated his belief that my independent living required family supervision, and his commercial real estate expertise in property security and risk management strategy. The family financial assistance that had been provided during occasional emergencies or unexpected expenses had evolved into systematic monitoring of my spending patterns, budget management, and financial decision-making that Michael and Rachel justified as responsible family oversight and elder care financial protection. Their suggestions about expense reduction strategies, budget optimization technique, and financial planning improvements revealed their systematic assessment of my financial management capability and their professional evaluation of elderly financial decision-making and resource allocation. But perhaps the most significant aspect of this evolving family dynamic was the comfortable confidence that Michael and Rachel had developed about their role in my housing decisions and retirement lifestyle management. Their systematic approach to elder care planning, property assessment, and family coordination had created a framework where they assumed increasing authority over decisions that affected my independence, property ownership, and lifestyle preferences without ever directly asking for my input or acknowledging my continued capability for independent decision-making and autonomous lifestyle management. When Michael's family arrived with their carefully prepared presentation about creative downsizing and assisted living facility options, represented the culmination of months of systematic planning and family coordination that assumed my compliance with their assessment of appropriate elderly housing and their professional evaluation of my lifestyle needs and capability requirements. Their confident presentation of research findings, facility tours, and transition planning reflected their complete assumption of decision-making authority and their systematic dismissal of my autonomy and property ownership rights. The folder full of assisted living brochure cost analysis, spreadsheets, and facility comparison charts that Rachel had prepared demonstrated the extensive research and systematic planning that had gone into their elder care intervention and their professional assessment of suitable housing alternatives for my demographic. Their coordination of facility tours, financial planning consultations, and transition timeline development revealed their fundamental assumption that my housing decisions required family management, and their systematic approach to what they considered inevitable elderly housing transition. Sometimes the most dangerous assumption that families can make about elderly relatives is that comfortable retirement lifestyle represents excessive independence that requires family intervention, rather than recognition of successful aging in place and autonomous lifestyle management, deserves respect and support, rather than systematic replacement with family-managed elder care solutions. The creative downsizing conversation that would unfold during that Sunday morning visit would reveal the true extent of Michael and Rachel's systematic planning and their complete misunderstanding of my actual authority over the property they were so eager to help me optimize through their elder care expertise and family coordination strategy. The professional world that Michael James Hartwell had constructed around himself at Cascade Commercial Properties represented the pinnacle of real estate achievement and market expertise. To say a carefully cultivated environment where his reputation as one of Portland's most successful commercial brokers provided daily validation of his belief that property success came through market analysis, strategic positioning, and the kind of sophisticated real estate knowledge that distinguished elite property professionals from ordinary residential agents. His position within the prestigious Cascade Commercial Properties firm had become the foundation for a professional identity that celebrated market intelligence, investment strategy, and the kind of advanced real estate expertise that enabled him to provide authoritative guidance on property decisions for both commercial clients and family members who needed professional real estate consultation. The commercial real estate department at Cascade Commercial Properties, where Michael spent his days managing major property transactions and complex development deals, operated as one of the most influential real estate agencies in the Pacific Northwest, handling over $240 million in annual commercial sales and serving as the primary property partner for Fortune 500 companies, major developers, and institutional investors throughout Oregon and Washington. The Tier 1 commercial designation that Cascade Commercial Properties maintained required the highest standards of market analysis, the most advanced property technology, and the kind of specialized real estate staff that included only the most qualified commercial brokers and senior property managers, coordinating with development teams throughout the regional system, implementing advanced market strategies for corporate clients, technology companies, and institutional property investors, and supervising junior commercial agents who sought to learn property management techniques from the agency's most accomplished brokers. His client performance evaluations consistently rated him in the top 15% of commercial brokers, with senior partners noting his exceptional market analysis, strategic thinking under pressure, and natural leadership abilities that suggested strong potential for senior partner promotion and future agency ownership opportunities. The professional recognition that Michael had earned throughout his commercial real estate career included featured transactions in Commercial Property Weekly magazine, presentation of market insights at the Pacific Northwest Commercial Real Estate Association annual conference, and collaboration with senior agency partners on client acquisition strategies that increased Cascade Commercial Properties' market share throughout the competitive Portland commercial landscape. His specialization in mixed-use development projects had attracted attention from major developers and institutional investors seeking comprehensive property solutions that combined traditional commercial sales with development consulting and market analysis. But beyond his transaction achievements and client management contributions, what made Michael's position at Cascade Commercial Properties particularly prestigious was his selection for the agency's Senior Partnership Development Track, an exclusive advancement program that accepted only 3 commercial professionals annually from across all agency departments. The program provided additional training in agency management, client relationship strategy, and commercial leadership development that prepared selected participants for agency partnership positions and senior broker roles at major commercial firms throughout the United States. The senior partnership development track that Michael had joined during his fourth year at Cascade Commercial Properties required participation in monthly strategy sessions with agency executives, quarterly rotations through different property management, and annual presentations to the board of partners about commercial perspectives on real estate trends and market analysis innovation. The program investment of $35,000 annually was typically covered through competitive agency scholarships or client sponsorship funding for commercial professionals who demonstrated exceptional market potential and strategic achievement. Michael's comfortable assumption that his senior partnership development track participation represented recognition of his individual merit and commercial excellence reflected his systematic approach to career advancement and his confident belief that professional opportunities naturally flowed to deserving candidates who demonstrated superior performance. Strategic real estate thinking. His participation in executive strategy meetings, property management rotation, and commercial leadership development activities provided networking opportunities and career advancement that distinguished him from residential agents who focused solely on transaction execution without strategic professional development. The monthly strategy sessions that Michael attended as part of the senior partnership development track included presentations by agency partners, commercial real estate executives, and property development leaders who shared insights about market leadership, client relationship management, and the business aspects of commercial services that determined agency success and professional advancement. These exclusive educational opportunities provided Michael with knowledge about real estate economics, agency administration, and strategic planning that exceeded what typical commercial brokers learned during their property training. The networking opportunities that accompanied Michael's senior partnership development track participation included regular interaction with Cascade Commercial Properties executives, visiting commercial leaders from other prestigious agents, and real estate industry professionals who managed billion-dollar property portfolios and influenced national commercial trends and market standards. The professional relationships that Michael developed through these exclusive events created career opportunities and advancement possibilities that would have been impossible to access through standard commercial training and property management education. Michael's home office in the Portland rental house had become an extension of his professional networking strategy, serving as a sophisticated workspace for hosting commercial colleagues, agency executives, and fellow senior partnership development track participants who appreciated the organized environment and premium technology setup that distinguished Michael's working situation from typical commercial professional home offices. The monthly strategic planning sessions that Michael organized featured carefully curated participant lists, professional catering services, and technology configurations that reflected his understanding of professional entertaining and relationship management. The commercial strategy events that Michael coordinated through his home office included quarterly gatherings for senior partnership development track participants, monthly networking sessions for commercial brokers and senior agents, and annual celebrations that brought together real estate professionals from across Cascade Commercial Properties, various property management teams. These sophisticated professional activities required substantial financial investment in catering, premium technology equipment, and entertainment coordination that exceeded what most commercial brokers could afford on their agency commission. The professional wardrobe that Michael maintained for his senior partnership development track activities included designer business suits for executive strategy meetings, premium professional attire for property management rotation, and sophisticated casual wear for networking events and commercial collaboration sessions. His investment in professional appearance reflected his understanding that career advancement in competitive commercial real estate required not only market excellence, but also the kind of polished presentation that distinguished future agency partners from ordinary commercial professionals. The continuing education activities
that Michael pursued, beyond his agency requirements, included membership in multiple commercial associations, subscription to premium real estate publications, and attendance at optional conferences that provided additional training in market analysis techniques and commercial leadership strategy. His professional development investments reflected comprehensive career planning that assumed continued financial stability and freedom from the economic pressures that limited his peers' educational opportunities. Michael's approach to professional relationships within Cascade Commercial Properties demonstrated his systematic understanding of career advancement and his strategic cultivation of connections that could influence his future opportunities in commercial leadership. His interactions with agency partners, property management administrators, and commercial executives reflected careful relationship management that prioritized professional networking over casual social connections or traditional mentorship relationships that didn't contribute to strategic career development. The client acquisition projects that Michael pursued during his commercial career included collaboration with senior professionals on transactions that examined market behavior patterns, property effectiveness, initiatives that enhanced client satisfaction delivery, and strategic planning studies that contributed to evidence-based commercial development. His transaction productivity exceeded the typical expectations for commercial brokers and positioned him as a candidate for agency partnership positions that combined property management with commercial leadership responsibility. But perhaps the most significant aspect of Michael's professional confidence was his systematic approach to applying commercial real estate principles to family property decisions and personal relationship management that he perceived as natural extensions of his market expertise. The analytical thinking that served him well in commercial transactions became a tool for optimizing family property situations and providing professional guidance to relatives who needed expert real estate consultation and market analysis to make informed property decisions. The decision-making framework that Michael applied to family property situations reflected his commercial training in market analysis and investment, prioritizing financial efficiency and market positioning over emotional attachment, and treating elderly property ownership as investment decisions that required professional evaluation rather than personal preference consideration. His systematic approach to family property consultation demonstrated how commercial training could enhance family financial planning when relatives needed expert guidance for complex property decisions and market positioning strategies. Michael's comfortable assumption that family property decisions should benefit from his commercial expertise reflected months of strategic thinking about eldercare optimization and his systematic calculation that elderly relatives should appreciate professional real estate guidance rather than expecting family members to support inefficient property decisions that didn't reflect current market conditions and investment best practices. The confidence that he displayed about family property consultation revealed his belief that commercial real estate expertise justified providing authoritative guidance for relatives who needed professional market analysis and strategic property planning. The language that Michael used to describe family property situations revealed his systematic approach to market analysis and his professional assessment of which property decisions deserved strategic consultation and expert guidance. His tendency to discuss elderly housing in terms of market efficiency, property maintenance, in terms of investment, and family property decisions, in terms of portfolio management, demonstrated how completely his commercial training had influenced his approach to personal relationships and family property situations that didn't contribute to strategic market positioning. During conversations with fellow commercial brokers about family property obligations, Michael often shared his philosophy about providing professional guidance and avoiding family property complications that could interfere with career advancement and commercial development opportunities. His systematic approach to family property consultation had become a topic of discussion among his agency peers, with some commercial professionals admiring his strategic thinking, while others questioned whether his market focus had compromised his understanding of family values and personal relationships that extended beyond financial consideration. The senior partnership development track seminars that Michael attended included sessions on work-life balance, professional relationship management, and commercial leadership that emphasized the importance of strategic thinking and efficient resource allocation in real estate career development. The program's emphasis on optimization and strategic planning reinforced Michael's systematic approach to relationship management and provided professional validation for his calculated assessment of family property obligations and elder care responsibilities that required expert market consultation. Michael's quarterly performance evaluations within the senior partnership development track consistently rated him as exceptional in strategic thinking, outstanding in professional development, and superior in leadership potential, providing regular validation of his systematic approach to career advancement and relationship management. The program feedback that he received from agency executives and commercial directors reinforced his confidence about professional priorities and strategic family property optimization that prioritized market expertise over traditional family value. The annual review process for senior partnership development track participants included evaluation of leadership skills, professional judgment, and character assessment that measured commercial brokers' potential for future agency partnership and property leadership responsibility. Michael's consistent excellent ratings in professional competence and strategic thinking provided validation of his systematic approach to career development and relationship management that prioritized professional advancement over traditional family values and elderly property consultation.
Rachel Marie Sullivan Hartwell's professional world at Northwest Interior Design Solutions represented an entirely different but equally confident approach to property expertise and lifestyle optimization, a carefully constructed environment where her reputation as one of Portland's most innovative interior designers provided daily validation of her belief that successful living environments came through strategic space planning, aesthetic coordination, and the kind of sophisticated design expertise that enabled her to provide authoritative guidance on living arrangements for both commercial clients and family members who needed professional design consultation and lifestyle optimization. The Interior Design Department at Northwest Interior Design Solutions, where Rachel spent her days managing major residential projects and complex staging assignments, operated as one of the most respected design firms in the Pacific Northwest, handling over $180 million in annual design projects and serving as the primary design partner for luxury home builders, real estate agencies, and high-end residential clients throughout Oregon and Washington. The premier design designation that Northwest Interior Design Solutions maintained required the highest standards of aesthetic excellence, the most advanced design technology, and the kind of specialized design staff that included only the most qualified interior designers and senior project managers. Rachel's daily responsibilities within this prestigious design environment included managing multiple major residential projects simultaneously, coordinating with construction teams throughout the regional system, implementing advanced design strategies for luxury clients, real estate agencies, and residential developers, and supervising junior designers who sought to learn space planning techniques from the firm's most accomplished designers. Her client performance evaluations consistently rated her in the top 12% of designers, with senior partners noting her exceptional aesthetic vision, strategic thinking under pressure, and natural design leadership abilities that suggested strong potential for senior designer promotion and future firm partnership opportunities. The professional recognition that Rachel had earned throughout her interior design career included featured projects in Pacific Northwest Home magazine, presentation of design insights at the American Society of Interior Designers Regional Conference, and collaboration with senior firm partners on client acquisition strategies that increased Northwest Interior Design Solutions' market share throughout the competitive Portland design landscape. Her specialization in sustainable luxury design had attracted attention from eco-conscious clients and green building developers, seeking comprehensive design solutions that combine traditional interior design with environmental consciousness and wellness-focused living spaces. But beyond her design achievements and client management contributions, what made Rachel's position at Northwest Interior Design Solutions particularly prestigious was her selection for the firm's Creative Leadership Excellence Program, an exclusive advancement track that accepted only 4 design professionals annually from across all firm departments. The program provided additional training in firm management, client relationship strategy, and design leadership development that prepared selected participants for firm partnership positions and senior designer roles at major design firms throughout the United States. The Creative Leadership Excellence Program, that Rachel had joined during her 3rd year at Northwest Interior Design Solutions, required participation in monthly strategy sessions with firm executives, quarterly rotations through different design management departments, and annual presentations to the board of partners about design perspectives on lifestyle trends and aesthetic innovation. The program investment of $28,000 annually was typically covered through competitive firm scholarships or client sponsorship funding for design professionals who demonstrated exceptional aesthetic potential and strategic achievement. Rachel's comfortable assumption that her Creative Leadership Excellence Program participation represented recognition of her individual merit and design excellence reflected her systematic approach to career advancement and her confident belief that professional opportunities naturally flowed to deserving candidates who demonstrated superior performance, strategic design thinking. Her participation in executive strategy meetings, design management rotation, and creative leadership development activities provided networking opportunities and career advancement that distinguished her from residential decorators who focused solely on aesthetic execution without strategic professional development. The monthly strategy sessions that Rachel attended as part of the Creative Leadership Excellence Program included presentations by firm partners, interior design executives, and lifestyle innovation leaders who shared insights about design leadership, client relationship management, and the business aspects of design services that determined firm success and professional advancement. These exclusive educational opportunities provided Rachel with knowledge about design economics, firm administration, and strategic planning that exceeded what typical interior designers learned during their aesthetic training. The networking opportunities that accompanied Rachel's Creative Leadership Excellence Program participation included regular interaction with Northwest Interior Design Solutions executives, visiting design leaders from other prestigious firms, and interior design industry professionals who managed million-dollar design portfolios and influenced national lifestyle trends and aesthetic standards. The professional relationships that Rachel developed through these exclusive events created career opportunities and advancement possibilities that would have been impossible to access through standard design training and project management education. Rachel's systematic approach to space optimization and lifestyle coordination had evolved into a comprehensive philosophy about living environment management that she applied not only to client projects, but also to family situations, where she perceived opportunities to provide professional design expertise and lifestyle improved consultation. Her training in space planning, functionality analysis, and aesthetic coordination had given her confidence in Rachel Marie Sullivan Hartwell's professional world at Northwest Interior Design Solutions represented an entirely different but equally confident approach to property expertise and lifestyle optimization, a carefully constructed environment where her reputation as one of Portland's most innovative interior designers provided daily validation of her belief that successful living environments came through strategic space planning, aesthetic coordination, and the kind of sophisticated design expertise that enabled her to provide authoritative guidance on living arrangements for both commercial clients and family members who needed professional design consultation and lifestyle optimization. The interior design department at Northwest Interior Design Solutions, where Rachel spent her days managing major residential projects and complex staging assignments, operated as one of the most respected design firms in the Pacific Northwest, handling over $180 million in annual design projects and serving as the primary design partner for luxury home builders, real estate agencies, and high-end residential clients throughout Oregon and Washington. The premier design designation that Northwest Interior Design Solutions maintained required the highest standards of aesthetic excellence, the most advanced design technology, and the kind of specialized design staff that included only the most qualified interior designers and senior project managers. Rachel's daily responsibilities within this prestigious design environment included managing multiple major residential projects simultaneously, coordinating with construction teams throughout the regional system, implementing advanced design strategies for luxury clients, real estate agencies, and residential developers, and supervising junior designers who sought to learn space planning techniques from the firm's most accomplished designers. Her client performance evaluations consistently rated her in the top 12% of designers, with senior partners noting her exceptional aesthetic vision, strategic thinking under pressure, and natural design leadership abilities that suggested strong potential for senior designer promotion and future firm partnership opportunities. The professional recognition that Rachel had earned throughout her interior design career included featured projects in Pacific Northwest Home magazine, presentation of design insights at the American Society of Interior Designers Regional Conference, and collaboration with senior firm partners on client acquisition strategies that increased Northwest Interior Design Solutions' market share throughout the competitive Portland design landscape. Her specialization in sustainable luxury design had attracted attention from eco-conscious clients and green building developers seeking comprehensive design solutions that combine traditional interior design with environmental consciousness and wellness-focused living spaces. But beyond her design achievements and client management contributions, what made Rachel's position at Northwest Interior Design Solutions particularly prestigious was her selection for the firm's Creative Leadership Excellence Program, an exclusive advancement track that accepted only 4 design professionals annually from across all firm departments. The program provided additional training in firm management, client relationship strategy, and design leadership development that prepared selected participants for firm partnership positions and senior designer roles at major design firms throughout the United States. The Creative Leadership Excellence Program, that Rachel had joined during her 3rd year at Northwest Interior Design Solutions, required participation in monthly strategy sessions with firm executives, quarterly rotations through different design management departments, and annual presentations to the board of partners about design perspectives on lifestyle trends and aesthetic innovation. The program investment of $28,000 annually was typically covered through competitive firm scholarships or client sponsorship funding for design professionals who demonstrated exceptional aesthetic potential and strategic achievement. Rachel's comfortable assumption that her Creative Leadership Excellence program participation represented recognition of her individual merit and design excellence reflected her systematic approach to career advancement and her confident belief that professional opportunities naturally flowed to deserving candidates who demonstrated superior performance, strategic design thinking. Her participation in executive strategy meetings, design management rotation, and creative leadership development activities provided networking opportunities and career advancement that distinguished her from residential decorators who focused solely on aesthetic execution without strategic professional development. The monthly strategy sessions that Rachel attended as part of the Creative Leadership Excellence Program included presentations by firm partners, interior design executives, and lifestyle innovation leaders who shared insights about design leadership, client relationship management, and the business aspects of design services that determined firm success and professional advancement. These exclusive educational opportunities provided Rachel with knowledge about design economics, firm administration, and strategic planning that exceeded what typical interior designers learned during their aesthetic training. The networking opportunities that accompanied Rachel's Creative Leadership Excellence Program participation included regular interaction with Northwest Interior Design Solutions executives, visiting design leaders from other prestigious firms, and interior design industry professionals who managed million-dollar design portfolios and influenced national lifestyle trends and aesthetic standards. The professional relationships that Rachel developed through these exclusive events created career opportunities and advancement possibilities that would have been impossible to access through standard design training and project management education. Rachel's systematic approach to space optimization and lifestyle coordination had evolved into a comprehensive philosophy about living environment management that she applied not only to client projects, but also to family situations, where she perceived opportunities to provide professional design expertise and lifestyle improved consultation. Her training in space planning, functionality analysis, and aesthetic coordination had given her confidence in evaluating living arrangements and housing appropriateness that extended beyond professional projects into personal relationships and family eldercare situations. The design principles that Rachel had mastered during her interior design career included advanced space utilization techniques, accessibility planning strategy, and lifestyle optimization methods that positioned her as an expert consultant for clients who needed comprehensive living environment assessment and improvement plan. Her specialization in aging-in-place design modifications had provided her with specific expertise in elderly housing needs and accessibility requirements that she considered directly applicable to family eldercare planning and housing transition consultation. Rachel's approach to family property assessment reflected her systematic application of design principles and professional expertise to evaluate living environments for functionality, safety, and lifestyle appropriateness. Her training in space planning and accessibility evaluation had given her confidence in identifying housing modifications, safety improvements, and lifestyle optimizations that she believed could enhance elderly living experiences and improve family property utilization. The eldercare design research that Rachel had conducted as part of her professional development included extensive study of assisted living facility design standards, senior housing space planning requirements, and accessibility modification techniques that provided her with specialized knowledge about elderly housing needs and design solutions. Her collection of professional resources about aging-in-place modifications, senior-friendly design principles, and eldercare facilities standards had become the foundation for her systematic approach to family eldercare consultation and housing transition plan. Rachel's home staging business had provided her with extensive experience in property presentation, space optimization, and market appeal enhancement that she considered directly applicable to family property decisions and real estate planning. Her success in helping clients prepare properties for sale through strategic design modifications and space reorganization had given her confidence in property assessment and market positioning that extended beyond professional staging projects into family property consultation and investment plan. The professional photography portfolio that Rachel maintained documented her most successful design projects and space optimization achievement, creating a visual record of her expertise in lifestyle improvement and property enhancement that she used to demonstrate her qualifications for family eldercare consultation and housing transition. Her systematic documentation of before and after transformations, space utilization improvement, and aesthetic enhancements provided evidence of her professional capability in property assessment and living environment optimization. Rachel's membership in professional design organizations included the American Society of Interior Designers, the International Interior Design Association, and the National Association of Home Stagers, providing access to professional resources, continuing education opportunity, and industry networking that enhanced her professional standing within the design community. Her active participation in these organizations included committee membership, volunteer design activities, and leadership roles that demonstrated her commitment to design professional excellence and industry contribution. The peer relationships that Rachel maintained within Northwest Interior Design Solutions reflected her strategic approach to professional networking and her systematic cultivation of connections with fellow designers who might become future colleagues, client referral sources, or career advancement resources. Her interactions with other firm professionals focused on strategic development rather than personal friendship, creating a network of design professionals who could support her long-term career objectives and creative advancement opportunities. Rachel's relationship with firm partners demonstrated her understanding of design industry hierarchy and her strategic approach to mentorship and professional guidance. Her interactions with senior design professionals focused on learning opportunities, creative collaboration, and career advice that could influence her partnership applications and future firm advancement appointments. The respect that she earned from firm leadership reflected her client competence and professional demeanor that distinguished her as a future leader in creative design excellence. The design skills that Rachel had developed during her interior design career included advanced space planning, client relationship management, project team coordination, and aesthetic development techniques that positioned her as one of the firm's most capable designers. Her strategic competence, creative accuracy, and client management skills earned recognition from firm partners and project coordinators who considered her a reliable and effective design practitioner with exceptional potential for firm leadership. But what made Rachel's professional competence particularly problematic was her systematic application of design principles to family relationship management, treating elderly relatives like client projects that required professional assessment and strategic intervention rather than family members who deserved respect, autonomy, and personal choice in their living arrangement. The analytical thinking that served her well in commercial design became a tool for optimizing family situations and minimizing what she perceived as inefficient living arrangements that didn't reflect current design standards and lifestyle best practice. The decision-making framework that Rachel applied to family housing situations reflected her design training in space optimization and functionality analysis, prioritizing efficiency and market standards over personal preference, and treating elderly housing decisions as design problems that required professional evaluation rather than individual choice consideration. Her systematic approach to family housing consultation demonstrated how professional training could distort personal values when career expertise became the primary measure of housing appropriateness and lifestyle optimization. Rachel's comfortable assumption that family housing decisions should benefit from her design expertise reflected months of strategic thinking about elder care optimization and her systematic calculation that elderly relatives should appreciate professional design guidance rather than expecting family members to support inefficient housing arrangements that didn't reflect current design standards and lifestyle best practices. The confidence that she displayed about family housing consultation revealed her belief that interior design expertise justified providing authoritative guidance for relatives who needed professional space planning analysis and strategic lifestyle optimization. Sometimes the most dangerous aspect of professional expertise is the confidence it creates about applying commercial principles to family relationships, and the assumption that professional training grants authority over personal decisions that require respect for individual autonomy rather than systematic optimization, industry standards, and market efficiency. The design career that Rachel had built through strategic professional advancement and systematic relationship optimization would soon be evaluated through criteria that measured not only creative competence, but also the character integrity and family values that determined whether promising design professionals deserved continued respect and consideration in family relationships that required both professional excellence and personal humility to navigate successfully. The regulatory empire that I had built during my 38 years as Chief Regional Planning Director for the Oregon Department of Land Development represented one of the most comprehensive and influential property authority networks in North American development history. A sophisticated system of zoning controls, environmental protections, and development regulations that determined whether families could build, modify, or even legally occupy residential properties throughout the entire Pacific Northwest region. What Michael and Rachel perceived as my simple retirement lifestyle actually concealed the most extensive individual regulatory authority ever accumulated by a single planning professional, with direct control over development decisions that affected over $47 billion in regional property values, and indirect influence over zoning frameworks that governed residential development across 17 Western states. My career trajectory from entry-level permit coordinator in 1985 to chief regional planning director had encompassed every aspect of property regulation and environmental development that existed within the federal land management system. Starting as a junior planning assistant when the Environmental Protection Agency was still establishing computerized impact assessment protocols, I had advanced through positions as senior permit analyst, environmental compliance coordinator, regional development supervisor, deputy planning director, and finally chief regional planning director, with ultimate authority over development approval systems that processed over 89,000 property applications annually and coordinated environmental compliance for residential projects throughout Oregon, Washington, Northern California, Idaho, Montana, and portions of Nevada and Wyoming. The scope of regulatory responsibility that I had accumulated during these decades of professional advancement exceeded what most property professionals encountered during entire careers in municipal planning or private development consulting. My daily decision-making authority had grown to encompass approval protocols for major residential developments, environmental impact assessments for sensitive ecosystem projects, zoning variance applications that could affect entire community planning initiatives, and federal compliance coordination that determined whether regional development projects received necessary environmental clearances and funding support from federal agencies and state development programs. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my regulatory career was my role in developing and implementing the Cascade Regional Environmental Protection Protocol, a comprehensive framework of zoning restrictions, environmental safeguards, and development standards that had become the model for sustainable residential planning throughout the western United States. The CREP system that I had designed during the early 1990s established automated compliance verification, integrated environmental monitoring, and multi-agency coordination protocols that ensured residential development projects met the highest standards of ecological protection while maintaining opportunities for appropriate family housing and community development. The CREP framework that I had created included over 84 specific zoning classifications, 1,200 environmental protection standards, 400 development compliance requirements that governed everything from individual home construction to major residential subdivision projects throughout the Pacific Northwest region. The system incorporated real-time environmental monitoring, automated permit verification, and integrated compliance tracking that connected local municipal planning offices with federal environmental agencies, state development programs, and regional coordination networks that processed billions of dollars in annual residential construction and property modification projects. My personal authority within the CREP system included the ability to classify properties for development eligibility, implement emergency environmental protection protocols, coordinate federal compliance verification, and override local municipal planning decisions when regional environmental standards or federal protection requirements conflicted with local development pressure and political consideration. The master-level access credentials that I maintained provided direct control over development approval databases that determined whether property owners could obtain permits for construction, renovation, modification, or even basic maintenance that required environmental compliance verification and regulatory approval. The Oregon Department of Land Development Organization, where I had spent my entire career, wasn't merely a state planning agency. It served as the primary coordination center for the federal Environmental Protection Agency's Western Regional Development Network, processing environmental compliance for over 2,100 municipal planning jurisdictions, 89 major metropolitan development areas, and coordinating approval integration with 45 different environmental agencies, federal departments, and regional development organizations across 17 states. Our systems handled over $12.7 billion in annual property transactions, managed environmental compliance for over 670 different planning departments and development organizations, and maintained the technological infrastructure that enabled platforms like federal environmental protection, state development coordination, and regional planning networks to provide effective property management
and family development support for hundreds of thousands of Pacific Northwest property owners. The scope of our environmental management operations required coordination with the Department of Housing and Urban Development for federal property compliance, the Environmental Protection Agency for Development Impact Assessment, the Department of Agriculture for Rural Development Coordination, the Department of the Interior for Federal Land Use Integration, the Department of Commerce for Economic Development Planning, and the Department of Homeland Security for Infrastructure, Security Monitoring, that supported both individual property protection and national environmental security requirements. My security clearance level within the federal environmental protection system required annual background investigations, financial audits, psychological evaluation, and professional competency assessments that ensured only the most qualified and trustworthy planning professionals maintained access to systems that could affect national development programs, regional environmental stability, and federal protection policy implementation. The clearance process included polygraph examinations, extensive interviews with professional colleagues and federal officials, and continuous monitoring that verified my continued reliability and commitment to maintaining the highest standards of professional integrity and environmental protection. The regulatory innovations that I had developed during my career included automated compliance verification systems that synchronized property data between municipal planning databases and federal environmental protection network environmental impact algorithms that protected ecosystem integrity while maintaining development accessibility, error detection protocols that identified regulatory violations before they affected environmental stability, and crisis response systems that maintained regulatory coordination during natural disasters or environmental emergencies that could affect millions of property records and billions of dollars in development activity. These innovations had been adopted by planning departments throughout North America, implemented by federal environmental agencies for national database modernization, and licensed to international development organizations that wanted to implement similar environmental protection systems and compliance protocols for sustainable development management in European Union countries, Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific Rim nations seeking to modernize their environmental protection systems and improve coordination between government agencies and private development organizations. The consulting contracts that I had negotiated with federal environmental agencies included ongoing regulatory support for database modernization projects. The specific regulatory authority that I maintained over Cascade County development, where my lakefront property was located, exceeded even my broader regional coordination responsibilities. As the original designer of the zoning classifications that governed lakefront development in this area, I possessed what amounted to absolute authority over development approval, environmental compliance verification, and property modification permits for every property within the Cascade Lake Environmental Protection Zone. The zoning codes that protected this area from inappropriate development, the environmental safeguards that maintained water quality and ecosystem integrity, and the architectural standards that preserved community character all reflected regulatory frameworks that I had personally created and continued to administer through my ongoing coordination authority. The environmental protection overlay that I had established for the Cascade Lake area included specific restrictions on property subdivision, building modification, septic system installation, shoreline alteration, and vegetation management that required specialized permits and environmental compliance verification before any property changes could be legally implemented. These restrictions weren't merely administrative requirements. They were comprehensive environmental protections backed by federal authority and enforceable through criminal penalties, civil fine, property seizure protocols that could result in complete loss of development rights and residential occupancy eligibility. Michael's comfortable assumptions about eventually subdividing my property for maximum financial return revealed his complete ignorance of the environmental protection overlay that made such development not only impossible, but potentially criminal under federal environmental protection statute. The lakefront zoning classification that I had established for this property included permanent conservation restrictions, federal ecosystem protection designation, and endangered species habitat protections that would require congressional approval and environmental protection agency override to modify or eliminate. Rachel's casual suggestions about property modifications and accessibility improvements
demonstrated her fundamental mental understanding of the federal environmental compliance requirements that governed any structural changes to properties within the Cascade Lake environmental protections. The bathroom modifications that she had suggested would require federal wetlands permits, environmental impact assessments, and ecosystem compliance verification that could take years to obtain and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in environmental consultation and regulatory approval fees. The family discussions about optimizing my property use and exploring market opportunities revealed their complete lack of awareness that this property operated under some of the most restrictive environmental protections in the United States, with development limitations that I had specifically designed to prevent exactly the kind of commercial exploitation and inappropriate modification that they were contemplating. The conservation easements that I had established, the federal habitat protections that I had implemented, environmental compliance requirements that I had created, ensured that this property would remain in its current configuration regardless of ownership changes or family inheritance situation. But perhaps the most ironic aspect of Michael and Rachel's creative downsizing proposal was their assumption that assisted living facility placement would be a simple administrative transition that required only family coordination and financial plan. What they didn't understand was that my security clearance level and ongoing regulatory responsibilities created federal requirements for residential location approval, communication security verification, environmental coordination access that made standard elder care facilities completely inappropriate for someone with my level of environmental protection authority and national security responsibility. The federal protocols that governed my residential arrangements included specific requirements for secure communication access, environmental database connectivity, and emergency coordination capabilities that could only be maintained in approved residential facilities with appropriate security infrastructure and technological support. The assisted living communities that Rachel had researched not only lacked the necessary security protocols and communication systems, they were specifically prohibited from housing federal personnel with my level of environmental protection authority and ongoing coordination responsibility. The Department of Homeland Security guidelines that applied to my residential situation required approval from federal security officials, environmental protection coordinators, and emergency response administrators before any residential changes could be implemented. The notification protocols alone would require months of federal coordination and security assessment, with approval contingent on maintaining environmental protection capabilities and emergency response coordination that assisted living facilities couldn't provide and weren't authorized to support. My ongoing consultation contracts with federal environmental agencies included specific residential requirements that ensured continued access to secure communication systems, environmental database network, and emergency coordination protocols that were essential for maintaining national environmental protection capabilities and regional coordination responsibility. The breach of these contractual obligations that would result from inappropriate residential placement could result in federal security violations, environmental protection disruption, and potential criminal charges related to abandonment of federal coordination responsibilities during environmental emergencies. The irony of being told that I needed to downsize for my own good by family members who were completely unaware of the federal responsibilities and environment protection authority that required exactly the kind of sophisticated residential infrastructure and technological capability that my lakefront home provided was not lost on me. The comfortable assumptions about elderly lifestyle management that Michael and Rachel had developed were about to encounter the reality of federal environmental protection authority and the consequences of interfering with national security responsibilities and environmental coordination that operated far beyond their comprehension or authority. The regulatory empire that had operated invisibly through their comfortable assumptions about family property management and elder care decision-making would soon become the most visible demonstration of environmental protection authority and federal coordination power that any real estate family had ever encountered. The zoning regulations that they had never bothered to research, the environmental protections that they had never considered, and the federal coordination requirements that they had never imagined would soon transform their confident assumptions about property optimization into the most explicit about regulatory authority and environmental protection that the Pacific Northwest development community had ever witnessed. Sometimes the most dangerous assumption you can make about elderly relatives is that retirement means the end of professional responsibility and federal authority, rather than the continuation of specialized expertise and ongoing coordination that requires exactly the kind of sophisticated infrastructure and technological capability that appears to outsiders as excessive residential accommodation. The creative downsizing conversation that Michael and Rachel had so carefully planned would soon reveal the true extent of their misunderstanding about property authority, environmental protection, the federal coordination responsibilities that distinguished my retirement lifestyle from ordinary elder care management and family property optimization strategy. Began as what Michael and Rachel had carefully orchestrated as their definitive intervention into what they perceived as my impractical elderly living situation. A thoroughly researched presentation that would demonstrate their professional expertise and family responsibility while convincing me to accept their well-intentioned guidance about appropriate housing transitions and elder care optimization, precisely scheduled to allow for what Rachel had calculated as optimal discussion timing before lunch, carried with them a comprehensive folder of assisted living research, financial analysis spreadsheet, and transition planning documents that represented months of strategic coordination and their absolute confidence in the necessity and appropriateness of their elder care intervention. The presentation that Rachel had prepared included detailed comparisons of 7 different assisted living facilities within a 30-minute radius of Portland, complete with cost analysis, amenity evaluation, and care level assessments that demonstrated her systematic approach to what she considered responsible family elder care planning. Her research had included personal facility tours, conversations with administration staff, and evaluation of activities programs, dining service, and medical care coordination that reflected her professional thoroughness and her genuine belief that she was providing valuable family service through her expertise in lifestyle optimization and space plan. Michael's contribution to their intervention strategy included comprehensive financial analysis of my current housing expenses compared to assisted living costs, market assessment of my property's current value and sale potential, and investment planning recommendations that would optimize my retirement finances while providing family inheritance protection and estate planning benefits. His commercial real estate expertise had enabled him to prepare detailed projections showing how property liquidation could fund premium assisted living care, while preserving assets for family inheritance and creating more efficient financial management for my remaining years. The confidence both Michael and Rachel displayed as they settled into my living room with their carefully organized presentation materials reflected their absolute certainty about the appropriateness of their intervention and their professional expertise in property evaluation and lifestyle optimization. Comfortable assumption that I would appreciate their thorough research and accept their guidance demonstrated their systematic approach to family elder care management and their complete confidence in their authority to provide direction for my housing decisions and retirement lifestyle plan. Eleanor, we've been thinking a lot about your situation here at the lake. Rachel began with the kind of professional presentation tone that she typically employed during client consultations and design proposals. While we absolutely love this beautiful home and understand your attachment to it, we're concerned about the practical challenges of maintaining such a large property at your age, especially with the isolation from medical services and the physical demands of upkeep that might become more difficult as you continue aging. The language that Rachel employed revealed her systematic approach to elderly consultation and her professional framework for presenting lifestyle recommendations that balanced emotional sensitivity with practical necessity. Her comfortable use of phrases like practical challenges and physical demands demonstrated her confident assessment of my capabilities and her belief that professional expertise in space planning and lifestyle optimization qualified her to evaluate my housing appropriateness and make authoritative recommendations about elder care transition. Michael's presentation of the financial analysis reflected his commercial real estate training and his systematic approach to property investment and asset optimization. Mom, I've run the numbers on your current expenses versus the cost of quality assisted living, and the financial benefits are really compelling, he explained while spreading detailed spreadsheets across my coffee table. Your property taxes alone are over $1 or $18,000 annually, plus maintenance, utilities, and insurance. We're talking about total housing costs that exceed $45,000 per year for a house that's frankly much larger than necessary for one person. The financial projections that Michael had prepared included assumptions about property sale proceeds, investment growth potential, and assisted living cost projections that demonstrated his commercial expertise and his confident belief that financial optimization should drive elder care decisions. His systematic analysis of my housing costs versus assisted living expenses reflected his professional training and investment evaluation and his assumption that I would appreciate expert guidance about financial efficiency and retirement planning optimization. But what made their presentation particularly devastating was the casual confidence with which they discussed property sale logistics and transition timeline coordination, treating my home as an asset that required professional management rather than my personal residence that reflected decades of careful planning and environmental coordination. Their comfortable assumption that property liquidation was simply a matter of market timing and professional coordination revealed their complete ignorance of the federal environmental protections, regulatory restrictions, and security requirements that governed this property and made their proposed transaction not only impossible but potentially criminal under federal environmental protection statute. We've identified 3 assisted living communities that would be perfect for your needs, Rachel continued while displaying glossy brochures and facility photographs that represented her systematic research and professional evaluation of elder care options. Cascade Manor has beautiful gardens and an excellent activities program. Lakewood Estates offers graduated care levels, so you could age in place, and Mountain View Residence has the most luxurious amenities and dining service. All 3 provide the social interaction and medical support that would be so much better for your health and safety than living alone out here. The facility research that Rachel had conducted reflected genuine care and thorough investigation, but her comfortable assumption that assisted living placement was simply a matter of family preference and financial planning revealed her complete ignorance of the federal security clearance requirements and environmental coordination responsibilities that made standard elder care facilities completely inappropriate for someone with my level of regulatory authority and national security obligations. Her systematic evaluation of amenities and care services had never considered the specialized infrastructure and security protocols required for federal personnel with ongoing environmental coordination responsibility. Michael's transition timeline proposal demonstrated his commercial real estate expertise and his systematic approach to property marketing and sale coordination. If we list the property in October, we can take advantage of the fall market and probably close by December, he explained with the confident authority of someone who had coordinated dozens of commercial property transactions. That would give us time to coordinate your facility placement and handle all the logistics of downsizing and transition support during the slower winter months, when you'd have more time to adjust to your new living situation. The marketing strategy that Michael had developed included professional photography, staging recommendations, and pricing analysis that reflected his commercial expertise and his assumption that property sale was simply a matter of professional coordination and market time. His confident discussion of listing strategies and closing coordination revealed his complete ignorance of the environmental protection overlay restrictions, federal habitat designation, and conservation easements that made this property legally unsaleable under federal environmental protection statutes and zoning regulations that I had personally created and implemented. As I listened to their carefully prepared presentation and witnessed their absolute confidence in their elder care intervention strategy, I realized that this conversation had moved far beyond family concern into the realm of federal authority interference and environmental protection violation that would require immediate regulatory response and comprehensive education about the reality of environmental protection law and federal coordination authority. The comfortable assumptions that Michael and Rachel had developed about elderly property management were about to encounter the most comprehensive demonstration of regulatory power and environmental protection authority that any family had ever experienced. I appreciate the time and effort you've invested in researching these options, I replied while maintaining the pleasant family tone that had always characterized our interaction. However, there are some important factors about my living situation and ongoing responsibilities that you may not be aware of,
and I think it's important that you understand the complete picture before we continue this conversation about housing transitions and property management. The slight confusion that appeared on both Michael and Rachel's faces revealed their immediate recognition that their carefully planned intervention was encountering unexpected resistance. But their professional confidence in their research and expertise convinced them that additional persuasion and detailed explanation of their findings would overcome what they perceived as elderly reluctance to accept necessary lifestyle changes and family assistance with housing transition. Eleanor, we understand that change can be difficult, especially when you've lived here for so many years, Rachel responded with the kind of patient reassurance that she typically employed during client consultations when design recommendations encountered initial resistance. But we've really done our homework on this, and we're confident that one of these facilities would provide you with so much more security, social interaction, and support than you're getting here alone on the lake. The systematic persistence that Rachel demonstrated reflected her professional training in client consultation and her belief that elderly resistance to lifestyle recommendations could be overcome through detailed explanation and emotional support. Her comfortable assumption that I would eventually accept their guidance revealed her fundamental misunderstanding of the situation and her complete ignorance of the federal authority and environmental protection responsibilities that made their entire proposal impossible to implement. Michael's reinforcement of their position reflected his commercial real estate experience and his systematic approach to overcoming client objections and property sale resistance. Mom, I know this feels overwhelming, but we're not talking about making these decisions immediately, he explained with professional reassurance. We can take our time with the research and planning, visit facilities together, and make sure everything is coordinated properly, so you feel comfortable with the transition process and confident about your new living arrangement. But what Michael and Rachel couldn't have anticipated was that their creative downsizing intervention was about to trigger the most comprehensive demonstration of environmental protection authority and federal regulatory power that the Pacific Northwest development community had ever witnessed. The comfortable assumptions about elderly property management that had guided their intervention planning were about to encounter the reality of federal environmental protection law and the consequences of interfering with national security responsibilities and environmental coordination authority. Before we continue this conversation, I need to show you something that will help you understand why your housing recommendations aren't feasible, I said while rising from my chair and walking toward the home office that contained the coordination center for my ongoing federal environmental protection responsibility. I think it's important that you understand the actual regulatory and legal situation regarding this property and my residential requirements before you invest any additional time in assisted living research and transition plan. The technology setup that I revealed to Michael and Rachel when I opened my home office exceeded their wildest imagination about elderly computer capabilities and residential technology requirements. The wall-mounted monitors displaying real-time environmental data from across 17 states, the secure communication systems connecting directly to federal environmental agencies, and the sophisticated database equipment that coordinated development approval for millions of properties throughout the Pacific Northwest created an immediate visual demonstration of the scope and complexity of my ongoing federal responsibility. This is the primary coordination center for the Pacific Northwest Regional Environmental Protection Network, I explained while activating displays that showed current development approval processing, environmental compliance monitor, and regulatory coordination activities affecting thousands of properties across multiple states. For the past 18 years, this residence has served as the designated backup facility for federal environmental emergency response and ongoing regulatory coordination that maintains environmental protection throughout the western United States. The databases that I accessed for their demonstration included real-time development approval processing for major residential projects, environmental compliance verification for federal protection program, and regulatory coordination with agencies throughout North America that required the specialized infrastructure and security protocols that my lakefront residents provide. The scope of coordination authority that the displays revealed exceeded anything that Michael or Rachel had imagined possible for an individual regulatory professional. The property where you're suggesting I should no longer live operates under federal environmental protection designations that I personally created and continue to administer. I continued while displaying the Cascade Lake Environmental Protection Overlay and the comprehensive restrictions that governed development throughout this area. The zoning classifications, environmental safeguards and development prohibitions that protect this entire region are part of a federal regulatory framework that requires congressional approval to modify and carries criminal penalties for unauthorized alteration or interference. The environmental protection overlay documentation that I showed them included the permanent conservation restrictions that prevented property subdivision, the federal habitat designations that prohibited structural modification, and the ecosystem protection requirements that made their proposed property sale not only impossible but potentially criminal under federal environmental protection statute. The regulatory framework that governed this property reflected the most restrictive environmental protections in the United States, with enforcement authority that extended to property seizure and criminal prosecution for violation. I explained while accessing federal security protocols and residential requirement documentation. My ongoing coordination responsibilities include security clearance obligations and environmental emergency response duties that require specific residential infrastructure and communication capabilities that assisted living facilities are prohibited from providing and not authorized to support under federal security regulation. The federal security requirements that I displayed included the residential approval protocols that governed housing for personnel with my level of environmental protection authority, the communication security standards that required specialized infrastructures, and the emergency coordination capabilities that determined appropriate residential facilities for federal environmental protection personnel. The assisted living communities that Rachel had researched not only lacked the necessary security protocols, they were specifically excluded from housing federal personnel with ongoing environmental coordination responsibilities. The reaction that followed my demonstration of actual regulatory authority and federal environmental protection responsibilities revealed the complete extent of Michael and Rachel's misunderstanding about my situation and their absolute shock at discovering the reality of environmental protection law and federal coordination authority that operated far beyond their commercial real estate and interior design expertise. "I don't understand," Michael said with obvious confusion about the implications of what he was witnessing. "Are you saying that you can't sell this property and that you can't move to assisted living because of government security requirements? I thought you were retired from some kind of planning job. I didn't realize you were still working for the federal government." The misconceptions that Michael's questions revealed demonstrated his fundamental lack of understanding about federal environmental protection authority and the ongoing coordination responsibilities that accompanied senior regulatory positions. His assumption that retirement meant the end, professional obligations, reflected his complete ignorance of the federal systems that maintained environmental protection and the specialized personnel who provided ongoing coordination support for national environmental security and regional protection programs. "I am retired from daily administrative duties, but federal environmental protection is a continuous operation that requires ongoing coordination and emergency response capability," I explained while displaying emergency response protocols and environmental crisis coordination procedures that required immediate expert response during natural disasters and environmental emergencies. The regulatory frameworks and environmental protection systems that I developed during my career continue to operate and require ongoing supervision and coordination and support that can only be provided by personnel with appropriate security clearance and specialized expertise. Rachel's questions about the interior design implications revealed her systematic approach to professional problem solving and her attempt to understand how environmental protection requirements might affect household planning and space optimization. So the property modifications that I suggested for accessibility and safety improvements, those would require federal permits and environmental compliance? She asked with growing recognition of the complexity that her recommendations had overlooked. "Any structural modifications to properties within the Cascade Lake Environmental Protection Zone require federal environmental impact assessments, ecosystem compliance verification, and congressional approval for projects that affect protected habitat designation. I confirmed while displaying the permit requirements and environmental compliance procedures that governed construction within federal protection area. The bathroom modifications that you suggested would require wetlands permits, endangered species impact assessment, and environmental compliance verification that could take years to obtain and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in consultation fees and regulatory approval process. The financial implications that I revealed about federal environmental compliance requirements exceeded anything that Michael had considered during his commercial real estate analysis and property optimization planning. The permit fees alone for basic structural modifications could exceed the total cost of assisted living care, with no guarantee of approval given the federal habitat protections and ecosystem preservation requirements that governed this property. But perhaps the most shocking revelation for Michael and Rachel was the criminal liability that their property sale proposal could have created under federal environmental protection statutes and conservation easement violation. The property subdivision and development schemes that you discussed during previous visits would constitute federal environmental protection violations, punishable by criminal prosecution, substantial fine, and potential imprisonment under environmental protection statutes that carry mandatory sentencing guidelines for habitat destruction and conservation easement violation. I explained while displaying federal enforcement protocols and criminal penalty guidelines for environmental protection violation.
The legal consequences that I outlined included potential criminal charges for conspiracy to violate federal environmental protection laws, civil penalties that could reach millions of dollars for habitat destruction and conservation easement violations, and property forfeiture provisions that could result in complete loss of property rights and residential occupancy privileges under federal environmental protection enforcement protocols. We had no idea, Rachel said with obvious shock about the legal implications of their property recommendations and the potential criminal liability that their housing intervention could have created. We thought we were helping with normal eldercare planning and property optimization. We never imagined that federal environmental protection laws and security clearance requirements could affect family housing decisions and eldercare facility placement. The education process that followed included comprehensive explanation of Federal Environmental Protection Authority, regional coordination responsibility, and the specialized infrastructure requirements that determined appropriate residential facilities for personnel with ongoing environmental protection duties. Michael and Rachel's systematic questions revealed their genuine concern about my well-being and their sincere desire to understand how they could provide appropriate family support within the framework of federal requirements and environmental protection obligations. The resolution that we developed over the following weeks included modified family coordination that respected my federal responsibilities while providing opportunities for meaningful family connection and support. Instead of assisted living placement and property liquidation, we established regular family coordination schedules that worked within my environmental protection duties, emergency response obligations, and federal security requirements, while maintaining the family relationships and support systems that we all value. Michael's commercial real estate expertise was redirected toward supporting environmental protection education and sustainable development consulting that leveraged his market knowledge for environmental benefit rather than family property optimization. His work developing marketing strategies for environmental protection organizations and sustainable development projects provided meaningful professional contribution while demonstrating respect for environmental protection values and federal coordination authority. Rachel's interior design skills were refocused on accessibility consulting and aging-in-place optimization that worked within federal environmental protection requirements and security protocol. Her expertise in space planning and functionality optimization provided valuable support for my ongoing coordination responsibilities while respecting the specialized infrastructure requirements and federal security protocols that governed my residential situation. The family relationship that emerged from this experience reflected genuine understanding of federal environmental protection, importance, and respect for the specialized expertise and ongoing responsibilities that distinguished my retirement lifestyle from ordinary eldercare management. Michael and Rachel's recognition of Environmental Protection Authority and federal coordination requirements created opportunities for authentic family collaboration and support that honored both family values and professional obligations. But perhaps the most significant outcome of this experience was the broader education about Environmental Protection Authority and federal coordination responsibilities that extended throughout their professional networks and community relations. The story of their creative downsizing intervention became a powerful lesson about the importance of respecting elderly expertise and understanding the complex professional obligations that can continue beyond traditional retirement timelines. 5 years later, Michael and Rachel's transformation has become a model for family environmental awareness and professional collaboration with federal environmental protection efforts. Their work supporting sustainable development projects and environmental protection education reflects their deep understanding of the importance of environmental coordination and their commitment to supporting rather than interfering with federal environmental protection responsibilities. Remember, Environmental Protection Authority and federal coordination responsibilities aren't temporary professional obligations that end with retirement. They're ongoing commitments to national environmental security and regional protection that require specialized expertise and continued coordination support. The creative downsizing that was intended to optimize elderly housing arrangements became the foundation for family environmental education and lasting respect for the federal coordination authority that protects our natural resources and maintains environmental security for future generations. Sometimes the most valuable lesson families can learn is that elderly relatives may possess ongoing professional responsibilities and federal authority that require exactly the kind of specialized infrastructure and residential capability that appears to outsiders as excessive housing arrangements. The environmental protection expertise that operated invisibly throughout Michael and Rachel's comfortable assumptions became the foundation for their transformation into knowledgeable supporters of federal environmental protection and advocates for the specialized coordination authority that maintains environmental security throughout the Pacific Northwest and beyond.